Early laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and the quotas favoring Europeans revealed a clear bias. These policies prioritized certain groups over others, shaping narratives of who belongs and who doesn't, narratives that persist today. Hello, welcome to All Things Immigrant and Society podcast. Let's break barriers, change the narrative, and navigate this path together. You're not alone. I'm your host, Dr. Iwu. Welcome back to another episode of All Things Immigrants and Society, 80s. Today let's talk about immigration in the United States. Not about policies, no. Today we're talking about immigration as our shared human story and why it is important not to forget the origins of this powerful country. If you're joining us for the first time, make sure you check out our previous episodes to be on the same page. And if you're excited on this journey, hit that subscribe button, leave us your thoughts, and share this with someone who can benefit from it. Growing up back in Africa, my parents made sure that we spent our holidays in our village, Badun. On one of these holidays, I asked my father a very simple question. How did we end up in this village? Our traditions, our ways of life, they all felt so deeply rooted, as if we had always been here. My dad smiled and told me a story which I'll never forget. He said our foreparents didn't start here. He said long ago, conflict broke out in our original homeland. Families were torn apart and survival pushed them to leave. And he told me that they crossed rivers, walked through forests, and traveled through lands of strangers seeking safety and opportunity. Eventually, they found this place, a space surrounded by entirely different natives. They worked hard, they built homes, and they grew their families here. And over time, this place became our home. But never forget, this land was someone else's home first, and it became ours because they allowed us to stay. Now that story stuck with me, and it's a reminder that immigration is as natural as breathing. Immigration is part of who we are as humans, a response to hardship, an act of survival, a leap towards hope. Immigration is a shared human story that transcends time and boundaries. And today, we're diving deep into how immigration, particularly into what we now call the United States, has shaped our world. Migration, immigration, movement. These three words are at the heart of human history. But have you ever stopped to consider where these words originate from? Well, the word migration comes from the Latin migratio, which means to change residence. It signifies the act of moving from one place to another, something humans have done since the beginning of time. And the term immigration, from the Latin word immigrare, simply means to move into. And so together, these words capture the natural and universal human instinct to seek new opportunities, to seek safety and a better living condition. Today, migration has gained international attention as we grapple with climate change, political instability, and economic disparity. But it's important to remember that it's not a modern phenomenon. Migration has been a constant in human history, a thread connecting us to our ancestors. In fact, the history of human origin reminds us of this. Modern humans are believed to have originated in East Africa, specifically in regions now known as Kenya, and Ethiopia. From these beginnings, our ancestors embarked on remarkable journeys, spreading across continents and adapting to new environments. As someone who has lived in East Africa, I have heard stories of different tribes in Kenya, Ethiopia, and how the people of Kenya and Ethiopia themselves have histories deeply intertwined with migration. They have moved, they have adapted, and they have made contributions to the rich cultural and historical mosaic of our world. This fundamental story reminds us that immigration is not just about borders or policies. Immigration is about survival. It's about adaptation. It's about hope. And immigration is who we all are. And so when somebody talks about immigration to me, it's not about who is an immigrant. It's about when they migrated. It's about when they immigrated. Now let's bring this story to the land we now call the United States. Migration here began long before the first Europeans arrived. Over 15,000 years ago, the first humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge, a landmass that once connected Siberia to Alaska. These early migrants were driven by survival, seeking food and better climates. They spread across the continent, creating vibrant cultures and communities. By 10,000 years ago, indigenous people had established diverse societies, each adapting to its unique environment. They cultivated the land. They built cities like Cahokia, an urban center that rivaled European cities of its time. They developed governance systems like the Iroquois Confederacy. These early contributions laid the foundation for the land we now inhabit. Yet, their efforts are often overlooked. The story of European migration began in 1492, and it all started with Columbus's arrival. Columbus's voyages marked the start of European colonization, driven by a hunger for resources, for land, and for wealth. When the Spanish came into this land, they established St. Augustine in 1565, today known as Florida. And they were followed by the English, who established Jamestown in 1607, and of course the French in Louisiana. Each group displaced indigenous populations, often through violence and coercion. In 1619, the first enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to Virginia, marking the beginning of a brutal system of slavery that would last centuries. These individuals were not voluntary migrants. They were stolen, trafficked, and exploited. Their labor built the wealth of the colonies. Yet, their contributions are still undermined through systemic racism and discriminatory policies that exist to this day. As small groups arrived, Irish fleeing famine, Chinese working on railroads, and Germans escaping political turmoil, the United States began to shape its immigration policies. Early laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and the quotas favoring Europeans revealed a clear bias. These policies prioritized certain groups over others, shaping narratives of who belongs and who doesn't, narratives that persist today. Through all these waves of migration, common themes emerge. Some of the push factors, like war, famine, persecution, and environmental changes, forced people to leave their homes. Some of the pull factors, the promise of opportunity, freedom, and safety, drew people to new places. You see, migration is rarely easy. It brings challenges, cultural adaptation, economic struggles, and prejudice. Yet it also brings immense contributions, diverse ideas, innovations, and resilience. Let's pause to acknowledge the crucial truth. Every group that migrates builds the foundation for the next. The indigenous people cultivated the land and created thriving societies long before settlers arrived. Africans, brought against their will, built the infrastructure and economy that powered early America. And immigrants from Europe, Asia, and Latin America brought skills, traditions, and labor that shaped industries and cultures. Respecting these contributions means more than just acknowledging them. It means addressing unique inequalities, dismantling discriminatory systems, and creating policies that honor everyone's dignity. Migration isn't just about borders. It's about people, survival, adaptation, and building community. And here's the truth. The United States is a superpower today because of its diversity. Its strength lies in its people. People who dared to dream. People who built and who persevered. Imagine what we could achieve if we led with compassion, if we led with kindness, if we led with solidarity, if we listened to each other. By fostering open hearts and minds, we create a future where everyone thrives. As I reflect on my father's story about our village, I am often reminded of a simple but powerful truth. Migration is natural. It's part of who we are. And when we recognize that and treat each other with dignity and respect, we build stronger, vibrant, and a more resilient community where everyone can thrive. And so polarizing the issue of migration in this country only divides us and separates us from a history so natural to us. It alienates us from our human story, and it divides us on trivial things that are not common to our human story. Thank you for walking with me through the brief history of immigration in the United States. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Remember, migration is not about borders. It's about people. It's about dreams and the shared human story of hope and resilience. Until next time, this is Dr. Iwu, reminding you that every step we take is part of a larger journey. Let's keep moving forward together.